This is Dave, and I'm here with Ethan, and together we are Dave and Ethan's 2000-inch Weird Al podcast, episode 83-inch.
On this week's episode, we continue our interview with John Bermuda Schwartz as he shares even more rare Weird Al clips and promos.
It's Dave and Ethan's 2000-inch Weird Al podcast.
It's a podcast about Weird Al.
It's Dave and Ethan's 2000-inch Weird Al podcast.
Seriously, the whole podcast is about Weird Al.
Dave and Ethan's 2000-inch Weird Al podcast.
You don't have to listen, but we're glad you are.
Dave and Ethan's 2000-inch Weird Al podcast.
How was your Thanksgiving and Black Friday and Small Business Saturday and Spatula Sunday and Cyber Monday and Giving Tuesday and Dave and Ethan's 2000-inch Weird Al podcast Wednesday and Throwback Thursday and Freaky Friday and...
Oh, you mean my Black and White and Weird All Over Friday? It was great! I spent all day listening to the rare clips and promos that Bermuda brought with him on episode 82-inch. And I spent the whole day texting the new accordion emoji, available with the latest iOS update, to everyone I know.
Yeah, I noticed. You sent it to me no less than 27 separate times.
Oh, sorry. I don't know what got into me. I meant to send at least double that.
What a great episode 82-inch was. We are so excited to hear even more rare clips and promos with John Bermuda Schwartz later this episode.
And a big thank you to Dr. Demento for joining us as a surprise secret guest at the end of episode 82-inch. His brand new album, First Century Dementia, the oldest novelty record of all time, was just released on Friday the 27th. You can pick up his brand new album right now, and more, at the drdemento.com store.
And boy, is there more. There is some great Dr. Demento t-shirts, pins, a record slip mat, and a Dr. Demento face mask, and old favorites like bumper stickers, wooden planes, rulers, keychains, books, autographs.
Plus, at DementedPunk.com, they just released their exclusive Weird Al Beat on the Brat enamel pin set.
I just got my exclusive Weird Al Beat on the Brat enamel pin set in the mail this week.
Me too! It's incredible!
While you're at DementedPunk.com, be sure to check out their selection of exclusive Barnes & Barnes merchandise.
Not only is there a new t-shirt and fish heads face masks, they are doing a promotion where, while supplies last, any orders for their holiday album, Holidays in Lumania, on CD or vinyl, will include a free autographed fish head or Krampus Holidays card personally signed by Art and Artie Barnes.
Okay, just got my order in.
And speaking of Dr. Demento, we just got some really cool gifts in the mail. Now, we already mentioned the Beat on the Brat pin, but there's also a brand new Wormios pin and a Dr. Demento button and sticker featuring the amazing art from the new album.
Not only that, but we also got the Holidays in Lumania CD and the Krampus greeting card.
But the gifts just kept on coming for Dave and I because we also got super amazingly cool Spatula City t-shirts and stickers from Spatula City Records in La Quinta, California.
We will be sharing some of the new stickers with our Patreon family, but if you can't wait, head on over to spatulacityrecords.com for t-shirts, stickers, record tote bags, and, well, records.
It was a real big mail week for us because we also received our Metal Al CDs.
It was so cool to listen and get to hear all the heavy metal covers of Weird Al songs. And we can confirm that Metal Al's cover of our official Dave and Ethan's 2000-inch Weird Al podcast theme song appears as a bonus track at the end of the combo UH Death and Dare to Be Metal CD.
There are only a handful of his CDs available, so be sure to grab yours before it's too late. MetalAl.bandcamp.com.
Let's see what's happening in Weird Al news. Star Wars fans may be familiar with the long-rumored Star Wars Detours animated spoof series by the Robot Chicken team.
For the first time ever, we finally got to see one of the episodes, and it featured none other than Weird Al.
The episode leaked on the Star Wars Leaks subreddit, and Al shared the leaked episode on his various social media accounts.
In the episode, Weird Al and Andy Richter team up as bounty hunters named Forlom and Zuckus. And I looked it up. Apparently, these are actual canon Star Wars characters.
It's such a fun clip. You should definitely check it out on Weird Al's social media. And I really enjoyed the reference to Pulp Fiction at the beginning of the animation. Now, clearly, whoever leaked it heard our Pulp Fiction Burrito parody ad on last week's episode 82 Inch, and that reminded them that this clip existed and inspired them to leak it.
This week's episode is brought to you in part by vegan Mexican restaurant Burrito in Troy, New York, home of the 2-pound double wrapped in a quesadilla. Burrito, come on down to Burrito and Burrito, your Burrito. Find them at burritosquare.com and at Burrito Squared on Instagram. And remember, not every burrito is a burrito, but every burrito can be burritoed.
It's definitely not a coincidence. In other Weird Al news, Weird Al was interviewed by Rolling Stone magazine, and he was asked to share how his 2020 is going. Rolling Stone asked him about what album he listened to most in 2020, what he watched on TV, what books he read, all the hard-hitting questions we would have asked Al if we had conducted the interview.
Now, Al gives a lot of joke answers and surprisingly a couple actual serious answers. And the one that really caught me off guard was Al said a new hobby he picked up was gaming and that he's been killing demons and blowing things up on his PlayStation 3. I thought that was amazing, and now I have a new life goal. I need to play video games with Weird Al.
And Al mentioned two of our favorite books of the year, Lily Hirsch's Weird Al Seriously and Bermuda's Black and White and Weird All Over. If you want to check out the interview, Al shared the link on his social media accounts.
On last week's episode, we aired part 1 of our interview with John Bermuda Schwartz, featuring rare audio clips of Weird Al on the Dr. Demento show, and an early radio promo where Weird Al talks about the making of the Eat It music video.
We know that you have been waiting in agony for the thrilling conclusion since last Wednesday, so without further ado, here is part 2 of our interview with Weird Al's drummer, archivist, and author of Black and White and Weird All Over, John Bermuda Schwartz. We join the interview already in progress.
Now, while we're on the topic of, Dr. Demento and these radio clips, you've sent us a couple of these really cool radio spots that have aired over the years for various different concerts and events, and really excited to play this one. This is the earliest one from 1981.
This Saturday, meet the weirdest of all. KRNA presents Weird Al Yankovic. Yeah, that's right. This Saturday, meet the weirdest of all, Weird Al Yankovic. Your chance to get an autographed copy of Another One Rides the Bus.
Another one rides the bus. Another one rides the bus. Ow! Another one rides the bus. Hey, hey!
Meet Weird Al personally Saturday at 1 at the Record Bar in Cedar Rapids and at 4 p.m. at the Record Bar in Iowa City. Then at 5 p.m., Weird Al will ride the Canterbury double-decker bus around town.
Another one rides the bus.
And if that isn't enough, KRNA in Maxwell presents Weird Al on stage, along with Patriot. Let's get weird with Weird Al Yankovic this Saturday on 93 KRNA.
Ah, indeed.
Where did you get this clip?
Probably Al, I assume. I wasn't involved in that gig.
No.
That was something. I think he went off. It was maybe Dr. Demento with him. I'm not sure what happened. He played at a place called Maxwell's, which was now known as the Union Bar, and we came back and played Iowa City in '84 on the Eat It tour, and but we played a different place. I think KRNA also sponsored that one, co-sponsored it, but we didn't play that venue again.
So they mentioned an autographed copy of Another One Rides the Bus in this ad. Do you have any idea what exactly he was signing?
It probably would have been the TK record.
Yeah.
As opposed to the Placebo EP. I think the TK record had just come out. And there's a story, there's a whole show about that too. About how that record came about without Al's knowledge.
Oh, really?
Yeah, that's another show. We'll you fly me out and we'll talk about that
Okay.
another time.
Okay.
No, it would have been the TK record. No, there weren't enough Placebo EPs really to go around.
Yeah, and I was assuming it wasn't the one from Europe. They must have just been signing the sleeve, or...
No, it wouldn't have been that one either.
Yeah.
No, it was a regular TK, which I'm not sure, but might have been Al's, Another One Rides the Bus might have been the very last record that TK put out. Oh. That might have been the final nail in their coffin. well, because Casey and the Sunshine Band wasn't doing anything really, record-wise anymore, and TK folded like right around that time. I mean, that had to have been like one of the last things they put out.
Wow. Well, I look forward to having you back to hear about it.
Now, do you have any idea how many of these different radio spots there are? I mean, is there one for like pretty much every concert, every venue that you go to?
Very often, and I honestly I didn't get copies of all of those very often. Sometimes spots are cooked up, like for the tour. I mean, this was a one-off appearance by Al, the KRNA thing. But when there's a spot cooked up for the tour, there's like it's a produced spot, and then the local station puts their information over it. They get sort of a script, and then there's a space where they can say, coming to the whatever the Coliseum Auditorium, on March 4th. And then that just goes over an already produced spot. Some stations I think produce their own spots, and I've got a couple of those, but no, I didn't get a different one for each show that we did. But radio stations usually did help promote the shows, so in that case, yes, they had spots, and that would be interesting to hear the ones where they made them up for themselves, where they produced it on their own. Like KRNA did for this. I mean, I've got a couple of them, but not a whole lot.
Is this the oldest one that you have in your collection?
I think so, yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
Very cool. I am just curious. I know you weren't at this signing, but did you accompany Al to any early signings?
Not unless I was involved.
Yeah.
So one of the first gigs I did with him was Weird Wednesday. It was April Fool's Day, 1981. And it was just me and him, just drums and accordion.
Yeah.
And we went to a place we did a club in San Diego called, Flanagan's, yeah. Was in like near San Diego, Mission Valley or somewhere. And it was an April Fool's, show or whatever. And it was just drums and accordion. And I don't think I have a tape of that. Hopefully I don't. That's I that was a little bit before. Well, no, that was right at the beginning. That was like my second gig with him.
Wow.
But I don't happen to have a tape of that. Sorry. And probably good. I do have the flyer. And it was like a handwritten flyer that they had, Xeroxed.
Yeah.
So it was on like, an 8.5 by 11 piece of paper. And they, probably put them around at the supermarkets and on telephone poles and stuff like that. So I do have, a Weird Wednesday flyer.
Very cool.
Wow. So we do have a couple more radio spots here, and this one is from 1996, the Bad Hair Tour. Let's take a listen to this one right now.
Get ready to jam with the man who put the ooh in cool. July 27th at Nautica Stage, the Bud Light Concert Series and Channel 92.3 presents Weird Al Yankovic and his band. Presented by Bud Light and Channel 92.3, the Bad Hair Tour. Don't miss the concert event of the millennium. Get tickets Friday at 10 a.m. at all Ticketmasters, Nautica Stage ticket office the night of show, or charged by phone. From Belkin Productions and Bud Light Nautica Stage. Pick it up, Bud Light.
That one is so hard to hear, I thought it was really interesting. They call it the concert of the millennium, and it was still 96 at that point.
Wow. Well, that's good for almost 1,000 years.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
The first 1,000, or actually the second 1,000.
Right.
That's pretty heavy stuff. Wow. Take that, David Bowie. and Rolling Stones with your Millennium Tour.
Right.
You're a little late with that, Mick. Oh, Sir Mick. Sorry.
So that was for a show in Cleveland, Ohio, and I noticed it did say the date was the 27th.
July 27th. Yeah. Well, we play. I mean, we played on the 27th of we only had one shot at that per month.
Right.
But we played a lot of 27ths. I mean, a whole bunch of them.
Is there any special ritual that is different for a 27th show?
No. it's much like the 26th and not unlike the 28th. So no, pretty much no.
Anything that sticks out in your mind about this concert back in Cleveland, Ohio, July 1996?
Well, like every time we played the Nautica Stage, there's a river behind us. and a bunch of people in their boats congregate behind the stage. The stage is backed up on the river. I mean, it would be very easy to fall off into the water, I should add.
Wow.
And they line up, and they get to hear the show for free. Now, they're not seeing much.
Right.
They're not seeing anything. But they line up out there, and they get their they bring food, and, they'll get a boat with a bunch of people and a bunch of beer and drinks and stuff like that, and go back there and party and basically have a concert, an audio concert, for nothing.
Right.
So, not too bad of a deal. Then there's a big boat that, goes up and down the river and blows its horn all the time. But no, you know what? The Nautica stage, what's cool about the Nautica stage is it's in an area of Cleveland called the Flats, which is just off downtown a little bit. And it's right along the river. I mean, I don't want to call it the banks of the river, but it's just it's a flat area. And it's got a bunch of eateries and shops and stuff like that, and then the Nautica stage is there like that. So I would very often, whether I had friends there or not to go have a meal with, I would very often just leave the venue and go, walk a half a block or a block to a restaurant and go have some food. There were some cool bars around there. I mean, it's a really neat. It's a very kind of a cool area. It's a night spot, a night area type place. And so that's what's cool about that. So after the show, we might go to a bar or something like that that's close by. And, so I remember that about that area. I can't think of the last time we played down there. I don't think it was called the Nautica stage anymore, but I think we played there a couple of years ago. And probably, on the Mandatory Fun tour, I think we played there. And a cool place. I mean, it's a neat place. So I remember that.
Very cool. I'm fascinated by the idea of listening to a concert while sitting on a boat. That's just such a unique idea.
Don't you dare, unless you send us like $79.
I was going to say, all those people, they don't have to pay for their tickets. Imagine all the extra revenue you could have brought in.
But if they wanted to come in and buy a T-shirt, they still had to pay the admission.
Right.
Okay. That's how you get them.
Right, but then when they want their T-shirt, then all of a sudden it becomes a very expensive T-shirt. They would have been smarter to stay on the boat.
Yeah.
And in no way am I suggesting that if you get in a boat and get behind the stage, you're going to hear us play. I'm just saying, people have done that.
And it also depends on the venue, because most of them, if you're behind the theater in a boat, you're not going to hear the show.
Yeah, if they were sitting outside of a building, they wouldn't hear much at all.
There's not a lot of good spots to park your boat outside of buildings in like downtown cities.
And they'd still have to pay $79 or $89 to get in and get a T-shirt. So, they're not going to win. It'd be smarter to just buy the ticket and sit in a nice seat and, and be there with the fans. And, maybe Al will come sit on their lap or something for one more minute. And then they go buy a T-shirt on the way out. And then they can hop in their boat and go back to the Flats or something.
Now, our next radio spot clip to listen to, this is from the Internet Leaks tour, and I believe I was actually at this show. Let's check this one out.
He sold more albums than any comedy act in history.
I wanna roll with the gangsters. So far they all think I'm too wide.
Weird Al Yankovic is coming live. A magical evening with the grand poobah of parody. July 5th at the Watertown Fairgrounds Arena. All hits, all nights. With three-time Grammy winner Weird Al Yankovic. Get all the latest news and more at WeirdAl.com. July 5th at the Watertown Fairgrounds Arena. Weird Al Yankovic. Tickets at Big Apple Music, Golden's Pharmacy, AmpEntertainment.net or charged by phone at 888-512-SHOW. Gold Circle seating available. Don't miss Weird Al Yankovic live.
Wow.
Yeah.
Much more well-produced.
Yeah, I can tell you that the ad didn't work that well because we only had they had only sold 300 tickets to the show. I think we had a lot more than that, once the show hit, but it was pretty, yeah. And that was in Watertown, New York. I don't even know where that's near.
It's near Syracuse, maybe an hour from Syracuse.
Is it?
Yeah, I drove up to that show. I remember, and it was a great show.
Oh, cool. Well, then you were 301 tickets.
That's right.
Okay.
That ad is very interesting. I mean, Do you know if this was a station-produced spot or one that was produced for the tour?
I think that was probably the station produced that.
Because I had never heard Al referred to as the Grand Pumbaa of parody.
Well, why not?
Oh yeah, I mean, I've never heard that before. I think it's great.
I mean, Prince of Parody is kind of, that's sort of cliche. You expect to hear that, but the Grand Poobah of parody. Yeah.
I love it.
I like that. And who doesn't know, great Grand Poobah hasn't been mentioned on TV since 1964, since the Flintstones went off the air, but who doesn't know what the Grand Poobah is? I mean, that's pretty cool.
That's right. All right, well, Ethan was at that Watertown concert, but here's a concert that both Ethan and myself were at, and this one is in Schenectady, New York, back on September 17th, 2016. This is a radio spot for the Mandatory World Tour. Let's take a listen to it right now.
Attention citizens, do not adjust your radio dial. This is not a test.
Everybody shut up.
Weird Al Yankovic, the return of the Mandatory World Tour. Proctor's, Saturday, September 17th. Prepare for music.
Easy wearing stripes of pride because I'm fat, fat, fat. Really, really fat.
Humor.
Living in an Amish paradise
And a rapid deployment of mandatory fun.
with aluminum foil. I'm white and nerdy. Look at me, I'm white and nerdy. I like
Tickets on sale now at proctors.org.
word crime, like I could care less.
Weird Al Yankovic, the Mandatory World Tour. Witness a musical and multimedia spectacle rarely experienced by mankind. Saturday, September 17th. Proctor's, the Mandatory World Tour. It will be mandatory. It will be fun. It will rock your world. We now return you to your normal radio schedule.
Now, something interesting about that one is that I was the one who ordered that spot.
Wow, thank you. That's a well-produced spot. That's also nicely done. Somebody put some thought into that. I don't know if that was if there was a standard spot that was put out, and but that sounds like that was done by the station.
Yeah, so I was working at that venue at the time in Schenectady, and I was overseeing the marketing for that show. And yeah, so it was a produced spot for the whole tour, and you had the option of a 15-second, a 30-second, and a 60-second version. And then there were also the opportunity of doing a pre-sale, meaning tickets are on sale at this point versus tickets are on sale now. And I didn't need all 6 options, but as a Weird Al collector and junior archivist, I ordered all of them. So you're welcome, Weird Al listeners.
Wait, you said you worked at that theater?
Yeah, I was doing the marketing for that show.
So did you see the show for free?
No, I think I actually bought my tickets because I wanted a good seat.
Okay, because you could send me the $79 now if you want.
It was really interesting because I worked at that venue for a number of years, and I did marketing for shows. And I remember one day getting the phone call from our programming director, and she's like, I'm at a conference right now, and this guy says Weird Al wants to come back to the Albany area, but they want to do a different city. What do you think? And I was like, do you need to ask me? So, of course, it was a dream come true to get to do marketing for the show. And I've told this story on the podcast before, but literally anything that I could order, I did. Like when we produced the TV spots, how it worked is there was a company, it was called Project Blackbird, and you had to tell them what you needed. So I filled out the order form, and I literally checked every single thing. So I got 6 versions of the radio spot, 6 versions of the TV spot, and then I even had them burn it to a DVD and mail it to me. Even though it was, complete overkill for 2016. You can just email it, but hey, I did it, so.
Oh, nice. Yeah, you know what? Because we had played... That's right. We played Albany the year before.
Yeah. On the first leg, you guys were in Albany.
Okay, then that's why we had to come back, play the area, but not necessarily in the city.
Yep. Yeah.
Or it's also possible that venue was booked. We played the Palace Theater. Actually, we played the Palace Theater several times, and I know we were there in 2015. And yeah, either wasn't available or or it was like, well, let's get a little bit out of town, and because that's the only time we've ever played Schenectady. It was in 2016.
Yeah, and I may be biased, but I think it's a great venue. So it was really cool to get to see you guys in a different venue for that area.
Oh, well, thanks. You're sure you're paid, right? you bought a ticket, right? Okay.
Of course I did.
I was just checking.
All right.
Okay, thank you.
Something like that you order, or that the venue has to order from some company somewhere. They have, I'm guessing they have some kind of boiler template, and they just talk over it like you had mentioned earlier. Who gets the final sign off on what clips, what songs go into those clips and things like that? Is that something that's signed off by Al, or is that just something the promoter puts together?
Well, I think that if there's something that's sent out from the agency, from the booking agency, for the use of the different promoters, that is approved ultimately by Al. Just as, if they put together a poster and they send those out, and then the promoter just adds his theater and the date at the bottom of the poster, those are of course approved by Al. If a station or local promoter or the venue wants to cook up their own spot, I don't think they run it by Al. I mean, that's something, they have to live and die by that, if it does or doesn't sell tickets. But the one that's, the generic version, yeah, that would be approved by Al. Absolutely.
So we have one last radio ad, and this is from the Ill-Advised Vanity Tour. Let's check this one out.
It's coming. The live concert event that you may or may not have been waiting for. Weird Al Yankovic, without the costumes, props, and video screens, performing a bunch of obscure songs you barely remember. Nobody thought this was a good idea, but he's doing it anyway. Weird Al Yankovic, the ridiculously self-indulgent, ill-advised vanity tour. With special guest Emo Phillips, on tour across North America in 2018. Tickets and tour information at weirdal.com.
That's such a great spot. I love that.
So that would be an example of a completely generic commercial. And somebody, that really says it all. You visit weirdal.com.
Yeah.
And, as I did many, many years ago, I also got weirdal.com because I knew people were going to misspell it. So to this day, we still pay for that domain, and you go to weirdal.com and it goes to weirdal.com. So I knew, and honestly, not because I thought someone would get the misspelling and do something nefarious. I realized people were going to misspell it. It's like, what, this can only help.
Right.
It's worth $10, $11, $12 a year, to own that name and make sure that even if you misspell that, you still get there.
Yeah.
So there you go. So that was my idea.
Good idea.
Misspelling weird was my idea. Yeah, I wish I had the $79 for that, but oh well.
Interestingly, this radio spot mentions Emo Phillips, who was the opening act on that tour, and this was the first time that you had an opening act that was consistent throughout the whole tour.
Yeah. He was fine. I don't think he had ever. Well, I know he'd never been like on a tour like that where he was, out for 3 months, where it was just, he would go out for a week or two and travel around a little bit, get driven around, and, not in a bus, I don't believe, and certainly not with a bunch of other people. And, so it was a new experience for him. He stays up all night, whether he's on the bus or if he's sitting in a hotel, he's up all night. And that's just him. After a show, you could expect him to be up until 4 a.m. and writing stuff. He tried to make every show different, every opening spot different, and we heard a lot of the same things. I mean, obviously we hear him every night, but we'd hear something new, and he made sure, because he likes to keep it fresh,
Mm-hmm.
Unlike us. Actually, on that tour, we did a different show every night as well.
Yeah.
But my explanation for how we get away with doing exactly the same show, 80 times on a tour without variation. Well, people, and knowing that there's a lot of repeat fans that'll come to the shows. Well, it's like, if you like a movie, you'll go see it, 3 or 4 or 10 times. You don't expect it to be different, on the 10th time you see it. You go to see it because you like it. You like what it is.
Right.
And the same reason you listen to an album. You don't expect it to be different, when you give it another listen. And in our case, that's certainly the case, when we do a standard show, whereas it's a set list. it's the same every night, and that's the beauty of that. You don't go to a Broadway show expecting it to be different, the next time you go, unless somebody forgets a line, and that's happened. But I mean, that's not intentional, for us anyway. And to answer the question, does he talk like that all the time? A little bit. I mean, it's exaggerated when he's on stage, but he talks that way. He talks that way a little bit. And, oh, hello, John. How are you? It's not quite as exaggerated as, hello, John. How are you? It's nice to see you. It's not that at all. He's somewhere in between. No, he's very funny. He's not on all the time, but I mean, he'll say some very funny stuff.
Oh, I'm sure.
And it was cool. It was cool having him out there, and I know it was a new experience for him. And it was, it was a perfect fit for the show. Whether or not the fans were really aware of him, they liked his routine. They liked his act. They liked his part of the show. And so I think that was a big success. That was, and it was cool for him. It certainly exposed him to a lot of new people as well.
Yeah, it was really fun getting to see Emo. I saw, I think, 10 shows on that tour, and I did see a lot of repeats, but he is just so talented and so funny. It is like, seeing the same Weird Al show over and over. It's still enjoyable to see him tell the jokes and see the reaction from people. So I definitely enjoyed that. I thought that was fun.
Oh, cool. Yeah, we'd watch him. We'd watch him from the side of the stage.
Oh, yeah.
A lot of times. and just oftentimes to see what he would do, differently.
Right.
And every night, I think he introduced at least one new thing. I mean, there was, there were certain tried and true lines.
Yeah.
About the what was it, the French existentialist seagull?
Yes.
Pourquoi? That was pretty much every night.
Yeah.
And we would mouth that along with him because we knew that was coming.
Oh, that's so great. One thing I noticed about this spot that's different than all the other ones is there's no actual Al songs in the spot. Do you have any idea what the music was that they used for this?
No. Wow. You know what? I hadn't even thought about that. You're right. I don't know. I can get out Shazam and we can find out. But... No, you know what? I honestly have no idea.
Do you know of any other tours that did this, or is this kind of a one-off thing?
I would say it's a one-off thing. I can't remember another one that like the Mandatory Fun one had word crimes in it and tacky and stuff.
Right.
Yeah, I don't know. That's, what, that hadn't even occurred to me. I don't know. I can go back and listen to the handful of spots that I have and see. If I find out, we'll do another show about that one spot. It'll be a short show, but I'll try and get an answer.
All right, sounds great.
All right, well, that's 3 shows you're coming back for. We have it in audio record.
All right, well, we're going to transition away from the radio spots, and we're going to talk a little bit about a TV spot that Al did. And this is one of many different variations of this song he did for the Sundance TV channel. So let's take a listen to one of them right now.
So many great shows and movies on Sundance TV, but where can you find it? Just listen to me. 126, yeah, channel 126. Not talking about 12, not talking 14, I'm talking about 126. Wow, 126. It's your new favorite number. 126. You should carve it on your forehead. Gonna tell you 3 more times now. 126, 126, 126. That's Sundance TV.
Whew.
Wow.
That song is so great.
That was fast. Yeah, don't blink.
Yeah.
Wow. No, the story on that now was we did 4 versions of that. Now, here's another secret, another industry secret. We didn't record the song 4 times. We recorded the song 1 time, and we dropped in us going, 126, or another one was 557. And it was for 4 channels, 4 different cable channels, 735. And then the other one was 1798. And so we would just, we would shout those, and then those would get dropped into, basically the track, and then that became another version of that, depending who was running it.
Right.
Depending, which channel was on what cable system.
And so this is one that the whole band performed on?
Yeah, me, Jim, Steve. I think Al played piano. I don't recall Ruben being in on that. And we did that at the end of 2015. So actually, that was between the legs of not between the legs, but between the tour, the two mandatory fun tours. No, not technically. A tour is called, when you're out for a while, it's called a leg, or a portion of the length of a tour is called a leg. So there was the 2015 leg, and there's a 2016 leg of the mandatory fun tour or the mandatory world tour, if you're, if you prefer. So that was done somewhere in the middle of that, I guess. With a #1 album and a big tour, Al was a hot property. So Sundance wanted to get him to do those promos. So there you go.
So what's really interesting, and I don't think we've ever told this story on the podcast before, but this series of Sundance TV spots was part of an inspiration for our theme song for the podcast, our official Dave and Ethan's 2000-inch Weird Al podcast theme song. When Ethan and I were throwing out ideas for the song, we knew we wanted something with a very loud, heavy metal type of feel to it. So when we were tossing ideas around, we immediately thought of this commercial, and we sent that to the Grammy-nominated Jim Chemo West as inspiration to help us write our theme song.
Well, I would have just sent you the music, and you guys could have gone, Dave and Ethan, and just dropped that in, and saved Jim the trouble, and you wouldn't have had to pay him the $50. Oh, well, next time.
We may take you up on that, Bermuda. It's not too late.
I wonder if we can get our money back.
Yeah, and if you don't think I have the tracks to these, you're barking up the wrong archivist here.
You did send us an interesting clip that goes with this, so let's check this one out.
557! 557!
Yeah, that would be us doing 557.
Yeah. Was there an original take, like an original number that you guys said, then the other ones were plugged in?
No, I think we did the music first, so all of the vocals would have been done after anyway.
Okay.
I don't know in what order they went.
Okay.
But I have the full versions of each of those, and I have us just doing 557, 735. I have those all split out as well. Of course I do.
So the next clip that we have is a jingle from K-Rock, the Kevin and Bean Show. Let's take a listen to that one right now.
Every morning, Kevin and Bean will make you feel alright. We tried to write a theme song, but the lyrics really bite. Too bad, cause we really like that line about Vaseline. On KROQ. Hey!
I've never heard that before.
Neither have I.
Now, unless you were in Los Angeles and listened to K-Rock, you would not have heard that.
Right.
Al was a semi-frequent guest on the show, usually for an interview and stuff like that,
Yeah.
and was very well liked by Kevin and Bean, and they were sort of, the alternative morning zoo guys here in L.A. So that's, it's just some wackiness from that morning.
That is awesome.
Now, do you have a time frame on that clip when that's from?
It's from 1991 is all I know.
Oh, okay.
Did he do a series of them for K-Rock, or was that just a one-off random thing?
Well, I think that was a one-off, and it may have. Actually, I don't know if he would have been in there to do an interview because there wasn't really anything happening at the time. So I don't know if he just came in to be wacky, or if that was from another time, or what that was. But that's the only one that I've got that's like that.
I would have to assume it's pretty rare for Al to do like a personalized song for a radio show, so he must have really liked those guys.
Yeah, well, K-Rock was, they played a lot of his stuff early on, and they were the first, I guess they're a mainstream station to play his stuff in LA. If you didn't hear it on Dr. Demento, you might hear it on K-Rock, but you didn't hear it on any of the other stations until the album started coming out, and then that was a different story.
Right.
But they played, his demos and stuff like that. I mean, they played early stuff, and it was very, very cool. So he was well liked by them, and he certainly, they helped promote him at a time when nobody else was really on board.
Mm-hmm. That's great.
What's interesting for collectors is that there's actually a Weird Al song, Christmas at Ground Zero, on one of the Kevin and Beans compilation albums, Kevin and Beans Last Christmas from 1999. So there's something for you collectors to go out and find as well.
Ooh, on 8-track as well. No, just kidding.
I think that one's only on CD.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Now we have one final clip that you shared with us, Bermuda, and this one is pretty stinking majestic. I will just play it and then we'll chat about it after.
Great.
That is so
Hey,
cool.
Harvey. So that's basically the demo so that Al would know what was coming. Like there wasn't already, orchestral parts on the original song, but that was, the part that came from the guy who scored a bunch of the charts for the 2019 tour.
Mm-hmm.
And so that was just, that wasn't the orchestra. That was just a keyboard demo of what he could expect to hear. And that was orchestrated by Scott O'Neill. And Scott was the conductor for the Colorado Symphony, and he conducted the show at Red Rocks when we were there. That's the only show he conducted. So he was working from his own charts, and then also some charts that were done at the Hollywood Bowl a couple of years before. Right. But he orchestrated everything new for the Strings Attached tour. So he got to conduct that show for basically his orchestra played that show. And that was a particularly good show as well. What's interesting is it's the one show where the orchestra didn't get to rehearse because it's an outdoor venue, and it was thundering. And they were, because it's outdoors and there's microphones and there's lights and stuff like that. It's not a covered stage really. They had to call the rehearsal. So he didn't get to go through, he didn't get to hear all of our stuff. And we went through like 5 songs. And again, he had written some of these things, and I assume he had a copy of the show, but he hadn't gone through all the motions with the orchestra yet. And I sat down with him, and along with Hawkeye, and we took about an hour or maybe 90 minutes, and we went through the entire show, the entire score. The order had changed from what he was aware of back in the beginning. We went through and we explained a lot of things that he didn't get to rehearse, that so he wouldn't be surprised, and it's a good thing we did, because there would have been it could have been a train wreck, if the orchestra, well, not the orchestra, but if he didn't know what the band was doing, because the orchestra follows him, that's not a problem, but he has to know what we're doing, and that was, he really didn't get a chance to work with us, the way Arnie and Eric Roth had done, who conducted all the other shows on the tours, on that tour. Once they knew the show, that was the show, and they knew all of our stuff. They knew our cues. And so I had to explain to Scott, I said, this is one where, we're going to watch Jim for the ending. He cues the ending on this song, so you're going to have to turn your head around and when he goes, you bring your arms down and the orchestra will follow you. Or on this song, I cue the ending. Or on this song, Al jumps up in the air, and when he hits the deck, that's the ending. Or or you cue the ending. We turn around and look at you on this song because you hold the orchestra, and then now we're waiting for your cue. So none of that had been given to him before, and again, we didn't have a chance to go through it with him. So happily, I don't know if Al ever was aware, but I sat down with him because I knew it was going to be a train wreck if he didn't know what we were doing and we didn't know what he was doing. So I sat down, and Hawkeye sat down, in case there was stuff going on that I wasn't aware of. And we went page by page, and it was a great concert, and that was a great orchestra as well. So that's what that little bit was, just to show Al what the parts would be, so that he wasn't surprised, at the first show.
Now, were the demos anything that you and the other guys would listen to, or was that strictly for Al?
Well, that was for Al to know what was coming. I mean, Al sends me copies of all this stuff. So I knew what they were going to sound like, but I mean, that honestly, that really wasn't important.
Okay. Yeah, because I don't know if you told us or if someone else had told us in the past that the band didn't really get to hear the orchestra, or you guys purposely didn't hear the orchestra.
Well, we didn't on stage. There's enough going on just with us, and it wasn't always to our advantage to hear the orchestra. There were some times we needed to hear the orchestra, but not very often. And that's not, I'm not to diss the orchestras that we played with, because most of them were great, and I'm aware of what they were playing, but they weren't. They for the most part weren't in my mix, because that's not what I was listening to.
Right.
They were playing with or to us as a band, and in some cases I was playing to a track, so the video was in sync with what we were playing, and that's what I have to listen to.
Right.
So, in order, sometimes a mix is very much a need to know. Having more stuff in a mix, for the people that are playing it, is not an advantage. We don't need to hear a perfectly mixed show. That doesn't help us play our parts. The vocal, Al wants to hear more of his voice than he does, the oboes, for example. And I want to hear more of the track and more of my drums than I do the orchestra or even Al's vocal. I mean, I have some of that stuff, but, so we're very selective about our mixes. And in my case, no, I did not have, actually for most of us, we didn't have the orchestra in our mixes. But as far as, we were aware what they were, it's not like we couldn't not hear them, but they weren't, we weren't playing to them. We were the connection between the conductor and between the orchestra and the band, and was between the conductor and me. That's why, he was positioned to my left, and he and I would keep eye contact. I mean, obviously he would hear me, but I mean, he would watch me for cues, and assuming that the band followed me and the orchestra followed him, and that he and I were together, it all worked out. And I think 9 times out of 10 it did. It was really rare that we had an orchestra that wasn't, up to snuff. Maybe they were 98% instead of 100%. So they were all pretty good. But getting back to the Colorado Symphony, the National Symphony in Wolf Trap, in Virginia, was an excellent organization. Some of these groups are really quite good, and Colorado Symphony with their own conducting was very cool. So, but I must take credit for getting him through that show in a way that he couldn't have done without without someone sitting down with him, because there was no rehearsal for that. I think we got through 5 songs, and it's like, hey, you guys got to leave the stage.
Wow.
And it's like he doesn't have the cues.
Yeah.
I bet he's
right.
I need Scott. I need to talk to you. Please bring your score, and let's go through the show. And that's how we pulled that show off.
Very cool.
And it was a very good show.
It was.
There were 9,000 fans, stark raving fans at that show, and that was a good show. So that little piece, that Harvey the Wonder Hamster, that's to have let Al know in advance of the tour what the orchestra was going to be up to, and what they were doing. And again, with Harvey, I mean, it was a marching band kind of song, but, and there were horns in this piece, but there were also strings and other stuff like that. And that's what those things were scored for. And again, that was one of many demos. And I have all the Hollywood Bowl demos also that were sent, done on a keyboard, sent to Al, so he would know what they were up to when it came time to the show.
Well, thank you for sitting down with Scott O'Neill and doing that, because both Ethan and myself were at the show at the Red Rocks Amphitheater, and it was probably my favorite show on the tour. So thank you for doing that. It was great.
Well, thank you. Was I aware that you guys, did I see you guys there? Was I aware that you were there?
You didn't see us in the 9,000 people that were there?
You couldn't see us?
I was waving to you the entire time.
Well, I forgot. I apologize. I'm sorry. I'll give you your $79 back.
Yes.
And for our listeners who want to hear a little bit more about all the orchestration that went into all the different songs on the Strings Attached tour, we actually talked to Scott O'Neill back on episode 5-inch, and you can listen to that episode back on our website, weirdalpodcast.com or at 2000inch.com.
Woohoo! Now, Bermuda, I had another question about some of these instrumental demos. Is there an equivalent when you guys are getting ready to record an album where, there's an instrumental that you guys put together before you actually go in the studio?
Well, generally, it's a 3-step process. Al will will record something for us, and over the years they become very sophisticated recordings, I might add. But he'll record something so that we know what he's doing, and then we'll get together and rehearse it a little bit. Now, these are for the originals. The parodies, we don't need to rehearse or any of that because we know what we're doing. We have that roadmap already. But for the originals, we'll rehearse based on what Al has given us, and we'll have some direction. He'll make some specific suggestions once he hears us playing it as a band, and then we'll record a demo as a band with vocals, and we'll record a proper song, something that would have rivaled any of Al's early recordings back in the day, and then we can all kind of chew on that a little bit before it's time to go into the studio. And by the time we're in the studio, we may have another note or two, a verbal note or two from Al, and which may or may not require us actually going through it in the studio. We may, it's like here on this thing we're changing, we're taking out a bar or we're repeating this or whatever. We don't really have to rehearse that. We know what that means.
Right.
So very often we'll go in, and then, so that's the third time that song will exist, is once we do it in the studio then. So there's the Al demo, there's the band demo with Al, and then there's the studio version. So for a lot of things, for a lot of the albums most recently, there could actually be counterpart albums of Al's demos of the song, and then an album of the band demos of the song, in addition to the actual final recordings.
Wow.
And I think in some cases you would find that the band demos are quite good, and some interesting little changes in them. I mean, some of the demos have a certain charm, before they get too polished in the studio. And I'm not saying that things can be over polished in the studio. I'm just saying that we got to be 100% in the studio. On the demo we can be 99%.
Right.
And those little kind of differences, those little nuances, are sort of cool sometimes. Maybe it's a vocal inflection that Al does one way, and then by the time it gets to the studio version, it's slightly different. Maybe he's thought about it, or maybe it's something he just happened to sing differently on one take and he likes it.
Right.
And then it became that. So there are Al and band demos for a lot of the original songs that are out there.
And has Al ever changed lyrics between them, or is it usually pretty consistent through that process?
Yes, he has. He's changed lyrics from time to time. Sometimes what'll happen, I think in one case, and I've forgotten the song, but there was somebody named in the song in the demo, and then by the time we were getting ready to record it in the studio, he had passed away. So Al didn't want to put him in there.
Oh, wow.
There's sometimes where Al will have a choice of so I've got a demo of him singing the original lyrics in some cases. I'd have to figure out what songs those are. There are some times where, Al will, and this will often be done before the band gets to demo a song, but will be, Al will think about a line or a couple of lines in a song and wonder if maybe have an alternate line, that he thinks of afterwards, and he'll run that by a couple of us and say, which line do you like better? You like this or you like this? And so there may be a difference between Al's demo and the band demo, in some cases. But usually the band demo is very close to the final version. I mean, it's a lot closer than Al's demo to the band demo.
Right.
But Al got to a point where he was putting drum machine tracks on. I mean, it wasn't just sort of an instrumental thing with a vocal so we'd know what we were doing. He would make very complete demos on his own, and then we would flesh them out.
Oh, cool.
And then in the studio, that was like the final thing. So yeah, there's, in a lot of cases for the original songs, there are two other recorded versions of them.
And now I have to ask, is there any songs that made it to the band demo that never actually went to the studio?
I don't think we got to the demo stage on certain things, but we had rehearsed things. Like there is a full version of Chicken Pot Pie.
Oh.
That we rehearsed, and I have recordings, of course.
Of course.
And so there are lyrics to an entire version of Chicken Pot Pie, but in between that sort of getting ready to think about that, and again, it was odd that we rehearsed a parody, but we had done it just, to do it. So we would sort of be ready, and then permission was not forthcoming, as it turned out. So I wouldn't call that a demo, but in that case, yes, we did rehearse something that was not to be. We rehearsed the U2 Polka, which was a medley of U2 songs in a polka.
Wow.
And I have a recording of us rehearsing that. Polkas we rehearsed. And that didn't get, that never happened. That never got, we didn't really demo polkas. Al would demo a polka, but only so we would know what we were supposed to do. But that wasn't the demo stage yet. Now, of course, I have a recording of that. It's pretty rough. It's us literally going through it for the first time.
Yeah. Wow, that's so cool.
But interesting, someday, and with Al's permission, of course, someday some of this stuff might come out. You never know.
Well, Al, if you're listening, give that permission. That would be awesome to hear.
Yeah, come on, Al. I can find this stuff in a heartbeat. Come on.
That is very cool.
The listeners of Dave and Ethan's 2000-inch Weird Al podcast want to hear those demos. So Come on, Al.
Well, there was the one song that the demo, I think Al's demo came out for the Word Crimes parody.
Oh, yes. And he did that specifically for the video, for the guy, I forget his name, sorry. But I for the guy that did the video,
Jared Heather.
Yeah. Specifically, so he would have a video to work with. So we would have the lyrics and the timing and all of that stuff. So yes, I'm surprised that got out. I'll let that out, I'm sure. Mm-hmm. And that was a demo. I think that was he had an instrumental of Blurred Lines, mm-hmm. and then saying the lyrics over that. I mean, there's really not anything, super, secret in that.
Right.
But it is a different version. I mean, that's unusual. That's actually what we got accused of doing a few times, is taking the original track and just singing over it. Which is a nice compliment.
Right.
Really.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, because you guys really, you change up the song. It's really not note for note in the parody. You guys, add different elements to it and change up the timings and shorten or lengthen.
Sometimes.
Yeah.
So sometimes, yeah, there's sometimes there's a tempo change, sometimes there's an arrangement change, there may be a key change. Sometimes an accordion solo is put in where there wasn't one on the original, whatever. On Stop Dragging My Heart Around, I don't remember any accordion on the Stevie Nicks song. So, so there were some liberties taken, over the years. But not, we got to a point later where the idea was that we would do the song exactly as it was on the original artist's version, and that was our starting point. And sometimes that's as far as we got. It's like, yeah, we're doing that arrangement with that, in that key, with those parts, and that's it. That's just what it's going to be. Same intro, same ending. That's what the song is. So that's what you guys need to do. And I don't remember if Blurred Lines was that way. I think Tacky was that way. Was exactly, like the Pharrell version. Mm-hmm. So there were some of those. So not a whole lot of liberties, but some songs are really long, and need to be cut back. I mean, American Pie was a much longer song than The Saga Begins.
Right.
So Al gets in 3 verses, and American Pie has like 5 verses. And it's quite a bit longer. And I don't think it's because Al ran out of lyrics. I think it's because if you want something radio friendly, it needs to be around 3.5, 4, maybe 5 minutes. It can't be like 6.5 minutes, like it was back, those kind of stuff back in the 70s, I mean, imagine when Hey Jude came out at 7 minutes and 11 seconds. I remember that very well. That came out in 1968. I believe that was incredible. That took the place of like 2 other songs, in radio time, but that was the beginning of, long songs,
yeah.
Imagine someone playing Jethro Tull's "Thick as a Brick." That'd be like a 21-minute, song just to play side one.
Right.
And some of the progressive stations in LA did that. I'm sure the disc jockey would go off and have a smoke or a cup of coffee or go to the bathroom, whatever. Knowing that he didn't have to be back for 18, 19, 20 minutes. That happened with concept albums like that. They would just run them. It'd be a 30-minute block of music. Before you heard anyone's voice again.
Well, it's always a treat for Dave and I, and of course our listeners, when you peel back the layers of the archive and you bring us these amazing clips like you've brought us today. So I just want to give a heartfelt thank you for sharing these really cool clips with us.
Thank you so much for joining us, Bermuda.
You are very welcome. Thank you.
Huge thank you to John Bermuda Schwartz for joining us last week, this week, all the other times he's been on, sharing all those amazing clips. And if you love those amazing rare clips, be sure to check out episode 27-inch, the first time we had him on, sharing rare clips.
Yes, this is another one for the record books. Now, in the interview, Bermuda mentions that there were 4 variations of the Sundance TV jingle, channels 126, 557, 735, and 1798.
Now, upon further research, we discovered that there are actually 4 more versions of the Sundance Channel commercial song, including 159, 165, 192, and 505. We asked Bermuda about them off the air, and he speculated that Al must have done the shouting himself, as he, Jim, and Steve did not record those numbers.
Well, glad we could close the book on that chapter.
Last week, we teased that we have exciting Bermuda-related news to share, and we are so excited to finally let the cat out of the book bag.
On the heels of his brand new book, Black and White and Weird All Over, we sat down with Bermuda for an in-depth, and we mean in-depth, discussion of the book.
Now, in these discussions, we literally go page by page, picture by picture, and read between the lines as Bermuda shares some great insights about each picture and behind-the-scenes stories, and he answers our questions. You are going to love this.
Our intern Frank is busy working on these recordings. Our plan is to start releasing these chapter-by-chapter conversations as a series of bonus episodes starting next year.
The idea behind these bonus episodes is that you can sit down with your copy of Black and White and Weird All Over and follow along with us as Bermuda shares stories, we ask questions.
And we'll even tell you when to turn the page.
So if you haven't picked up the brand new book Black and White and Weird All Over yet, do so right now at blackandwhiteandweird.com or put it on your holiday wish list. You're definitely going to want to have a couple copies on hand by the time these episodes start dropping.
While we expect the bonus episodes to start dropping in the new year, in keeping with tradition, our Patreon supporters will get to hear the episodes first. If you know you just can't wait, be sure to sign up now and join our pretty stinking majestic Patreon family over at patreon.com/2000inch.
And as always, brand new Inch episodes come out every Wednesday, but bonus episodes, like our upcoming series with Bermuda about his book, can drop at any time. If for some ungoshly reason you haven't subscribed to the podcast yet, go to your favorite podcast app and subscribe right now so you don't miss it.
This week's episode is brought to you in part by Discover Darwin, promoting tourism in Darwin, Minnesota. Not only is historic Darwin, Minnesota beautiful, it's also cold and meaty.
This week we are featuring Darwin Freezer Services. Rose Point Kennels says, Darwin Freezer does a great job processing our meat.
And Brooklyn P says, love it there. Thanks, Dad, for the good meat every night.
Wait, what?
According to the Better Business Bureau, Darwin Freezer Services is not Better Business Bureau accredited, despite having an A+ rating.
So visit Darwin, Minnesota on your next expedition. Discover Darwin, more than just the twine ball. And after you visit Darwin, be sure to visit discoverdarwin.biz.
Each week, we are able to bring you this podcast absolutely free thanks to sponsors like Burrito, Angel Valenzuela and his son David Cash, Discover Darwin, Jackson Scoggins, and all of our amazing Patreon supporters like Stan, Jared, and so many more.
Revenue from our incredible supporters on patreon.com/2000inch is how we can afford to continue doing what we love, which is making fantastically fun, funny, and family-friendly Weird Al podcasts for you each and every week. We'd absolutely appreciate your consideration in joining our pretty stinking majestic Patreon family for as little as $1 per month.
If we know anything here at Dave and Ethan's 2000-inch Weird Al podcast, it's that Christmas and the holiday season is just around the corner. So this year, get all of your holiday shopping done early by purchasing official Dave and Ethan's 2000-inch Weird Al podcast merchandise for everyone on your shopping list. From the official Dave and Ethan's 2000-inch Weird Al podcast merchandise shop. Head on over to shop.2000inch.com for official Dave and Ethan's 2000-inch Weird Al podcast t-shirts, official Dave and Ethan's 2000-inch Weird Al podcast tote bags, official Dave and Ethan's 2000-inch Weird Al podcast mugs, and official Dave and Ethan's 2000-inch Weird Al podcast face masks, and more great items from the official Dave and Ethan's 2000-inch Weird Al podcast merchandise shop.
Find us online at WeirdOutPodcast.com or 2000inch.com and join our Facebook group by heading to group.2000inch.com for episode discussions and other exclusive content. Don't forget to tag fun Weird Al or podcast-related posts on social media using hashtag 2000inch and hashtag GillandChill. And be sure to follow at 2000inch on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. And be sure to also head over to youtube.2000inch.com to watch our podcast with your ears.
Make sure to share our post and tell your friends about the podcast. And we love it when you leave us voicemail on our 27-hour-a-day podcast hotline, 347-SPATULA. You might even hear your message on the air. The 347-SPATULA hotline, the official hotline of Dave and Ethan's 2000-inch Weird Al podcast, is sponsored by Angel Valenzuela and David Cash, two amazing Weird Al fans and podcast supporters.
You already know where to find us, but do yourself a favor and head on over to Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, Amazon Music, or the podcast app of your choice and hit the subscribe button to ensure that you don't miss new episodes. New episodes drop every Wednesday, and bonus episodes may drop at any time.
Thanks again to this week and last week's guests, John Bermuda Schwartz. Thanks to John Caffiero and Dr. Demento. Thanks to Spatula City Records, and thanks to all of our listeners, subscribers, Patreon supporters, and sponsors, and everyone who made this episode and podcast possible.
That was Dave and Ethan's 2000-inch Weird Al podcast, episode 83-inch, Chilliwack's #1 Weird Al podcast.
Thank you again for having me. I think there might be some more clips in the archive.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I might have to dig those out too.
Wow. Yeah, I think you should.
Well, then I will.